And welcome back to the show, everybody. Today is going to be a very special conversation. This conversation is, I think, going to involve a lot of gifts, not only for you, the listener, but opening up on that topic about what gifts people have and how they can tap into them. This lady, Taryn Voget, she is an amazing person already. Even though we've just met, I already know how amazing she is at what she does. She has gifts. She can see what others can't see when it comes to how to level up your business, get projects done within the corporation, and has a massive level of experience working with high level companies. Maybe we'll touch on those. Maybe we won't, depending on if she has an NDA. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. So, Taryn, welcome to the program. I am so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about this conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, speaking of gifts that people have, I was wondering how you go in when you go into an organization to either work with a CEO or with a group that's trying to get a project done. How do you go in and start tapping into people's gifts? What does that look like for you?
What I'll say is it's changed a bit over the years. I had a very intuitive gift at a young age in my consulting career, and I didn't know what it was until later. Uh, and I'll tell you a story about that. So I remember I was on a consulting client. I used to work for Accenture, and we were on this big client, and it was some 20 or $30 million project. And I remember coming in thinking, this is the wrong problem to be solving. And I just knew it. And I didn't know how I knew it, but I knew it. And sure enough, 20 million or $30 million. And 6 months later, the partner on the project said, I think we solved the wrong problem. And I said, well, if you'd have talked to your little junior consultant, she could have told you that. But I didn't have the confidence nor the cachet or the influence at that time in my career to stand up for myself and having those thoughts. And over the decades of experience now, I own it much more. And so I come into clients now and I just tell them, listen, I'm super intuitive and let's talk about it. But I can tell you things that you probably don't even see yourself. And so often when I come into an engagement, it's I start interviewing people, and I'm kind of good at asking these laser sharp questions or having a feeling and just knowing where to take the conversation. And when you talk to enough people, you start to form the full picture of what's really going on. And people at these companies are smart. I mean, I work with super smart people and they know what's going on, but sometimes they don't see the whole picture, which is one of the benefits of bringing in a consultant is because I don't have baggage, I don't have history. I'm very objective. And so I'm looking for what's the pattern, what's the issue, where's the imbalance. And and without all of that baggage, I can do that much clearer oftentimes than someone in the company. However, people in the company know their business far better than I ever will. So it's a process to find it. Sometimes I see it very quickly. Sometimes it takes me 10 or 15 meetings, but it's not a long process for me to kind of get what the issue is and figure out where we need to go.
Hmm. Very good. Yeah, from somebody who also has a gift of knowing things without knowing how I know them, I totally understand that. So, where do you think these gifts come from? You said you had them for a while, you've known them, used them for a while. Where do you think they come from?
I think every person is born, and they call it the sixth sense, right? It's another sense like smelling or tasting or hearing. It's that sense of intuition, that sense of knowing. And everybody has it. We're all born with it. Now, the question is, have we exercised that muscle and made it stronger, like our taste or our smell or our hearing? And I think some people have exercised that. And if you want to go a little more esoteric on it, if you look at time, maybe not so linear, and you look at not just one lifetime, but multiple lifetimes as a soul, maybe these are gifts that we honed in another time and space and we brought into this incarnation. That's a little esoteric, but sometimes you wonder how are people born with such powerful gifts? I mean, where did they come from? Was it just what their wiring is at the moment of birth, or does it come from something beyond that we pull in from somewhere else? And so I think that I probably have that intuitive gift. What's the word? It's like a muscle I've worked a lot. And I certainly over the last 20 years, I have very consciously honed that gift and worked on it and tried to get better every day at it because it's such a powerful gift when you can really trust that part of yourself. And so where does it come from? I think we have it. It's just, have you worked it? Are you open to it? Do you trust it? Do you find value in it? Do you use it? And I mean, these are all the questions. So it's not where it comes from. It's more of how much have you exercised it?
Yeah, exactly. I know from experience when I don't tap into it, when I ignore that gut feeling or that intuition, it tends to lessen, but it can also be brought out by someone as well. And like you and I were talking before we started the recording, as soon as I saw you on video and saw you speak, it just ignited that in me, and I like knew right away. Oh, she's like me. She knows things without knowing how she knows. So
I love that you thought that.
that's another reason, I guess, or another bonus to hiring you to come in and consult to find out what's going on and dig to the root problem. And speaking of that, I was wondering, do your clients have to be spiritually inclined in order to work with you?
No, and the truth is they're not. And I say they're not. I mean, everyone's on different spiritual paths. Some people, find their spirituality oddly enough in not being spiritual, and they're sort of exploring that side. Other people go really far into these spiritual paths. Some people go and meditate with gurus in India. I mean, everybody in a way, I think, is seeking something. It's just a matter of what that thing is. And with my clients, would I call them all spiritual? I mean, in a sense, I think we're all spiritual beings, but are they sort of on the path that I'm on? No, very few of them are. And yet it doesn't matter, because when I come in, I so see people in their genius, and I love tapping into that energy, that kind of love and that genius inside people. So when I'm leading a group, or I'm leading an offsite, or I'm talking to people, I think they kind of fall into my energy a little bit, and that brings up their spirituality in a way that they maybe haven't experienced it with other people. So no, as a rule, they're not. What I'll also say is sometimes like attracts like. I think clients that gravitate towards me probably tend to lean that way a little more than others. I mean, I don't think a company that is out of integrity would ever call me. It's just not the vibration that I'm in. I just wouldn't attract that. So usually the companies I work with are very great companies with good people.
Oh, there's a lot there to unpack, but I definitely want to get back into, you said the word genius. And as I was doing some reading on you, you mentioned the word genius multiple times in the content that you put out and on your site. And I'm just curious, what does genius mean to you?
This has been a passion of mine for a long time. It's is to really understand the nature of genius. And I, many years ago, started a company called the Everyday Genius Institute to dive deep into this and help people tap into this within themselves. And I also created a bunch of products around how to learn from the world's best, learn from these geniuses in a way that was quite simple. And so I feel like I get genius, and it took me a long time to really deeply understand what it is and where it comes from. And this is what I believe to be true in my experience. I believe that everybody has a genius. And when I say genius, I'm not talking about IQ. I am talking about the element of something so special that only that person can do it in that way. And when you see what you might call a genius in the world, it's not that they have better raw material than anybody else, because we all have the raw material of genius. What somebody that you might call a genius has is the ability to focus over time and get better and better and better. And so I think when we think about genius, what we don't often think about is the amount of focus it takes to achieve a level of insane mastery. And yet you see people that have a lot of mastery, but sometimes don't have that little spark of genius. And so what I think there's a special sauce in genius is you kind of open up to the quantum field and to anything that's possible, and you have a moment of inspiration and pull something in that's quite special or new or different or beautiful. And those moments of inspiration combined with that focus to take it and make it great is often when you see works of art like Michelangelo. And so for me, I think that genius, I keep saying genius is a verb, it's not a noun. People say, oh, he's a genius. But the right way to think of it is, oh, he is geniusing. Because genius is a process. I mean, you look at someone like an Elon Musk, and I think a lot of people would argue he has a very specific genius. And yet nobody believed in him 30 years ago. I mean, his car company almost went bankrupt. People laughed at him. And yet, was he any less of a genius 30 years ago than he is now? No. It's just that he was geniusing and the world caught up to his vision and the timing of it. And it just took a long time. And so all of us are in a phase of geniusing. And whether our creation is here yet or not is not the point. It's just that we're working towards it. And I can't tell you how many geniuses you think of in history that were discovered after their death. I mean, certainly the impressionistic artists in France were like that. They were discovered and called geniuses long after they were dead. The Monets of the world weren't recognized in their time, they were laughed at. And so were they any less of a genius then? No, they were geniusing the whole time. It's just not everybody saw it in the moment. So, I often think people think about genius as IQ. To me, genius has that is a very specific kind of genius, a very specific way of thinking in terms of IQ tests. But to me, that's not what genius is, because I don't think a master sommelier, someone who's a top wine taster in the world, who I know, I don't know what his IQ score is, but if he scored average on the IQ test, does that make him any less of a genius in tasting wine? No.
No, not at all. And the
Yeah.
ability, I've delved into that a little bit and talked with people that do that, and what they're able to discern and taste is just incredible.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
mentioned Elon Musk and how the world laughed at him at first. All these financial advisors and stock guys were giving him crap because his company never made any money and just kept going further and further into debt. And you mentioned that he was geniusing all that time. And I was wondering, does that mean that he had this this level of vision the whole time and he knew exactly what he needed to do, and it just took so many years to implement it that the world finally caught up at that point? Or was he still developing that vision and working on himself to figuring out what his gifts are in order to bring that vision to life? So in the word geniusing, I guess, where does the personal evolution fall in? Is it there right at the beginning, or is it a process that they pull from within them and then go forward?
That's a really great question. And I have to think about that because I'm wondering if that's the way I answered, if it's true in every case. Uh, I think here's what I've noticed about genius in general, and then I'll bring it back to Elon Musk, is oftentimes people are passionate about something. And in this case, let's say it's electric cars. I think he had this passion, like this deep internal passion for electric cars. There's a passion there. And so it's the passion that starts opening doors the more you start working your passion. And that might be true for a chef or for someone that's into business strategy. There's a passion there, right? It's sort of this thing within you that you need to do to feel alive. And so in that passion, there are moments of incredible inspiration if you're open to them. And those moments of inspiration, I think, take you to the next place and then the next place and then the next place. Now, did Elon, whenever he started working with Tesla, late 20s, I think he was, maybe? No, it was probably in his early 30s. Whatever the year was, I don't know exactly. But, did he know that it was going to be this huge, massive success and one of the, if not the largest car company in the world at the time? I'm not sure he would have thought that way at the moment. And yet, over time, I think he realized how big it could be. And he certainly did everything he could to make it that big. So, those moments of vision and inspiration evolve. But that passion is what fuels all of that. And I think the energy of excitement and the energy of passion is that secret magic sauce in the universe that just starts making doors fly open in ways that they wouldn't otherwise.
I couldn't agree more. Having that passion, having that drive, the willingness to just work on something with almost reckless abandon because you love it so much or are so interested in it to make it come to life. I completely get that. And I was also wondering, when it comes to bringing out this genius or geniusing in people, um, do you find that there's a certain technique that you use in order to get this process going, or does it depend on the person, or like what does that look like when you start bringing that up and out for people to recognize what it is and use it?
For me, this is my favorite thing in the whole universe to do, to help people feel into their own excitement and their own gifts and their own genius and their own soul's calling. It's my favorite thing. And I often joke that it's my sacred service because I can't tell you how many times I'll be on an airplane and someone just starts talking to me about their career or what they're up to or what they're excited about. Or I'm in the grocery store line and someone is having a moment where they've got to make some decisions about their career life. So I feel like the universe always match makes me with people that are questioning what am I here for? What are my gifts and what do I do? And for me, there is an energy of frequency inside excitement and inside genius. Like everything has an energy. Sadness has an energy. Happiness and joy have an energy. To me, genius has an energy. It's a very specific frequency, a very specific energy. And so when I'm talking to people or working with people, I just because I love being in that energy, I'm always trying to pull it out of other people. And it's a process, it's an inquiry, it's a what excites you? Where do you find joy? What lights your fire? What's fun for you about that? And I'm kind of always trying to lock into that little energy where I feel a little spark of something and then turn that spark into a roaring flame. And it's often through my excitement, because when I'm excited, then people get excited. And then my questions, and then like, well, what about this and what about that? And you get people thinking and more excited. And then you start to really see that genius and that gift inside people. And one more thing on that is, do people have a singular gift or a singular genius? No. Oftentimes there's things that excite us in a moment. What excited me 25 years ago is not the same thing that excites me today. There are elements of it that are the same, but it's not the exact same. It's an evolution. And I think we're very dynamic as humans. And it's the rare person that does one thing for their whole life. And certainly I'm always impressed by this because I don't have that level of ability to stick with one thing forever. But when I see artists creating art on canvases for 50 years, I think, wow, they stuck with one thing their whole life. Uh,
But did
and
they
and
really
and,
though?
and there's a focus in that, right? There is a focus that makes them really good.
That is true. But my counterpoint to that is even though they're creating art on canvas, did they really stick to the same thing? Did they switch styles? Did they play with different mediums, watercolor, oil, 3D? Just because it's on canvas doesn't mean it's the same. So there can be
Well, that's an excellent point.
evolution.
Yeah. That's an
Yeah.
excellent point. I never thought about it exactly like that. Yeah, you're right. And in my mind, I think it's all the same thing, but you're right, it's not. It's probably totally different. Oil and acrylic are probably wildly different. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is coming from somebody who, is a musician and has played the drums for years, not somebody that paints, but I've known people that do. And I've heard them talk about how different the mediums are. And so that's what I kind of wanted to lay out for anybody that is listening that might think that they are stuck in one area of their life or their career or what have you. There's a way forward or even a way out, because I'm sure you've run into these circumstances in your career that you're working with someone and you figure out, hey, this isn't the right place for you. Like this is not where you're meant to be. Your gifts, your vibration, they don't match here. And we need to start thinking about where you can really thrive. Have you run into that before?
I have. So there was a time when a client asked me as a favor to run HR for a while for their company. And it's not normally something I do, but I really like this client and they were really desperate. So I ran HR for, I don't know, it was 6 months maybe. And there was a time when there was quite a few exits from that company. There was just a lot of transition in the organization. And somehow I got the job of having to exit a lot of people. And people felt sorry for me, like, oh my God, I'm sorry that you have that job. And I thought, don't be sorry. I said, I'm doing every single one of these people a favor because this is not the right place for them. And they are going to shine and thrive somewhere else where they are a perfect match for the next thing. And that's always how I think about exits, whether they're desired exits or undesired exits. It's that everybody deserves to be someplace where their gifts are seen and appreciated and acknowledged. And if it's not in the place you're at for whatever those reasons are, no problem. Find somewhere that is. And I think people don't always like the change of that. But on the other side of it is almost always something better. So I see it that there is a perfect match out there for everybody.
Absolutely
Yeah.
agree. And I want to get into a little bit more of the I guess maybe the boring stuff. We're moving away from the gifts and all the intuition stuff for just a little bit. But I was wondering, I was reading in obviously your content and your LinkedIn. One of the videos I saw was about brainstorming session and helping people create new projects. And you mentioned one of the things that you do is you get out a piece of paper and colored pencils and have people start drawing a feeling, something that they can relate to at an emotional level, and then draw whatever that represents to them. I'm wondering, do you ever come across some sticks in the mud? Some people that are just like, I am 45 years old. I'm not a child. I'm not doing this.
I just led an offsite recently, and the beginning energy, because I often do this at an offsite because it's such a great way to get in the right energy for what you need to do, especially if it's creative work. And just to backtrack for a second for the listeners on here, the video Brian was referring to is how to lead a better brainstorming session. And my experience over the years is that people that lead brainstorming sessions ask for ideas far too quickly in the process. And you've got to warm up your brain and warm up your energy and warm up your thinking by doing a bunch of pre-exercise. And so one of them I often do is get people into a feeling place. And I use drawing because that's a creative thing, kind of does two things at once. And so I recently did this at an offsite where I had some people do the exercise. And I thought, oh my God, there's a couple of these. They weren't 40-year-olds, they were 65-year-olds that are tech people. and they were uncomfortable. They're like, my drawing sucks. This is uncomfortable. This is awkward. And I think that I'm so used to this that I'm just like, you guys, doesn't matter what you draw. I don't care if it's stick figures, look at mine. And I'll always like intentionally draw something really basic like stick figures. And then people get more relaxed. So yeah, there is resistance sometimes, but then once people get into it, it opens something up in you that is not, often not open at the beginning of meetings.
And there we go about the being open and bringing more of
Mhm.
those gifts and those
Mhm.
intentions in. Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Um, oh man, I had another thing that I wanted to ask you along that subject, and now it is just whoop, gone. Um, so we'll go along with the next thing that I wanted to kind of set up for you, just a scenario, really. So a little bit of role playing on my end, and just to see kind of where you might start with this, how you might approach it, given the tech people that you were just talking about. So let's pretend that I'm the CEO of a SaaS company, and our niche we're focused on is the insurance industry. Now, we're working on a brand new platform that is going to revolutionize the service that we're providing to the insurance industry. However, we're falling behind schedule, Taryn. I mean, my tech team, they're not meeting the build out deadlines. My marketing people, they can't seem to agree on a line of messaging in order to really drive pre-sales for this thing. And I don't know where the disconnect is. And where do I start? Where would we start?
Is this a real life scenario or is this a makeup one?
No, I made this up. This is all me just making
Okay.
stuff up. But I wanted to try to be
Yeah.
specific,
Okay.
and that way we could make it kind of quote unquote real and yet fun.
Sure. So every project is unique, and I very much track or intuit every project in a very unique way. And no two are the same. So I don't know that I have a formula. The questions I would be asking though are probably the same. The first one is everybody on the same page on the executive team? And the CEO will always tell me yes. But I always know that the answer is no. I guess
Hmm.
it's just rare that that happens. There's usually some lack of understanding or lack of vision or lack of everybody in the same boat rowing in the same direction. So step one is everybody on the same page with the same vision about what we're trying to do? I would say 9.5 times out of 10, the answer is no. So how do we get everybody in a room and we're 100% agreed on strategy, vision, and our execution plan? And sometimes you have to slow way down and get back to that place before you can speed up again. So there's sometimes it feels like taking a step back, but that taking a step back allows you to go much faster later. So that'd be my first question. My second question is like, okay, let's say that everybody is agreed on the executive team or on the team running this project. We're all in lockstep. We get it. We've got the same vision, and stuff is still not on schedule. It's falling behind. So then my next question always is why? Like there's usually something underneath it. Something underneath it is we haven't landed on the right message, I think was one of your things. Okay, do we need to test more messaging? Do we need to get in a room and figure that out? We lost a person. We don't have the right skills. The marketing plan we used to use isn't working in this context. I mean, there's usually a why. And if you peel it back and you look at what's going on, it's like, okay, well, then let's solve for that issue. Now, if everybody's falling behind, then I'd be asking, are do people have what they need? Always a question as a leader is, does everyone have what they need? And if they don't, what are they missing? Are they missing resources? Are they missing clarity? Are they missing actually knowing what the schedule is? Like what is it? And then if that's still happening, then I'm asking, is this the right person to be running it? And sometimes the answer to that is no. You just don't have the right people. So I think there's a sequence of questions that I'm asking, and you don't always get it all at once. But often I try to solve those things first before I look at swapping out people. Does that answer your
And
question?
and then some.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're thinking about hiring Taryn, I think you just saw the reasons why you should right there, because she is able to just go down the list, bang, 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 bang. These are all the reasons why this could be happening and what we would address, and just yeah, expertise shining through right there, 100%. Oh my goodness. I think I remembered what I wanted to ask you. What kind of energetic techniques do you use in order to start the process, bring someone's intuition more to the forefront and get that going? And is it right out in front? Like, are you there with, with crystals and incense and chanting, or is it more subtle?
I'm actually going to answer that question in two parts. So the first part is a great question around energy. What's the energy that you're trying to bring out in somebody, or you're using to bring that out in somebody? And I think that is a really deep question because in my work, I think about energy constantly. And I'm thinking about the energy that I'm bringing to it. I'm thinking about the energy that a person has in a situation. I'm thinking about the energy that a team has or a company has. I am constantly thinking about what's the energy here and do we need to make any adjustments to get where we want to go? And 100% of the time, the answer is yes. I mean, I shouldn't say 100, 99.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't
uh,
be there if it wasn't.
yeah, oftentimes, sometimes companies are doing great and they just really want to keep amplifying it. And so then it's like, okay, well, how do you get to that energy? Because really, any business is ultimately an energy game. You can have all the funding in the world, the most brilliant ideas, the right people, but if the energy is not aligned, it often is a struggle. And yet, I have seen with my own two eyes a number of times terrible funding, a mediocre idea, but fantastic people with not even fantastic people. I would say good people, but nothing, completely brilliant, but just good. But the team together has such a fantastic energy. They can conquer anything, and they do. A funny story about this is I'll never forget having dinner with the team of the Men's Warehouse. Remember the Men's Warehouse? I mean, they're still around.
You like
And
the way you
I
look.
would say these executives were, I would just say kind of great people, but I wouldn't anywhere put them on the category of, oh my God, this is the most brilliant person I've ever met. It was like good people. And yet somehow as a team, it was a brilliant team. And I've rarely seen a team this good, like where you take kind of average people and make something so brilliant. And I thought, this is what I'm talking about. And this is why for so many years, the Men's Warehouse was so wildly successful. I mean, now it's, I think, a different story, but that team isn't together anymore. So there's that.
All right.
And so it's always like, what's the energy that we need to do the thing? And if the energy is not aligned, how can we make it aligned to get where we want to go? Now, taking that to the second part of this, which is with the individual, I'm always thinking, what's the energy that this person needs to be in to get what we want? And if we need this person to be more intuitive, how do we make that energy happen? If we need this person to be more excited or more focused or more whatever. And one of the things that we didn't talk about is that I have a deep background in doing healing work with people. And it's all those tools that I've learned and how to help people make transformation that I often bring to my clients. Because sometimes people do get stuck and you need to transform something within them or within their psyche in order for that energy to shift. There's a stuckness and it's stuck because something needs to be transformed internally. And so sometimes that's the work I do. To get very specific around intuition, I think that we create such a powerful bubble or energy field around us. And when people are in a bubble, they often tend to resonate on that frequency. So I have probably a pretty intuitive bubble. And so when people get into my bubble, they tend to be more intuitive often. Whereas when I'm in other people's bubble that are like, I don't know, like really focused or really fun, I become more focused or more fun. I mean, that's just kind of how energy works.
Right.
So I think some of it's just being in the bubble of where I'm at, and then people are kind of matching to me, just as I do with others. So I think that's kind of a multiple part answer to your question, but it's all related.
Oh yeah, it's 100% related, and that's why I
Yeah.
wanted to bring that up because I could tell again from reading about you that you were in to healing and had gifts in there in that energetic healing space as well. And I spent 10 years as a massage therapist, and I always resonated with the energy work. I mean, you kind of probably knew that already, but yeah. And so I want to just kind of touch on that and see, are we doing um like quote unquote long distance Reiki? Are we doing some kind of acupressure work, or what might you use to help get someone unstuck that energetic blockage that's keeping them from experiencing that flow of intuition?
Well, there's a bunch of tools in my toolbox, and it depends on the client. What I have developed over the last, I don't know, 10 or 15 years now is, and by the way, a lot of people don't know this, but many years ago, I went to what I fondly call shaman school, and it's actually called healing the light body. But the idea is that we're all ultimately made up of energy, and all of our experiences have an energetic component to them. And if you can lock into those experiences kind of on an energetic level, a feeling level, you can make quite powerful transformations in people and help change those traumas or those beliefs or those underlying patterns. And there's a lot of techniques. The challenge I had was I can't take the way they taught me in shaman school how to do that and bring that into a conference room, which is what I need to be doing. So
Right.
I really had to adapt those really powerful healing modalities into something that I could do in a conference room and not seem weird. And so a lot of times for me, it is through conversation and a very intentional mm, focus on my part about how to have the conversations, the words I'm using, the energy I'm walking into, what I'm tracking or seeing inside somebody, asking questions that bring that maybe that trauma, that issue, that belief to the surface. And then we talk about it a bit. And then what I've developed in the last bunch of years is what I call my favorite thing. It's called a repeat after me, where I can do the healing by saying it out loud. I like say what the healing kind of is, like repeat after me. And people do, and then that's where that shift can happen in a belief or in a trauma or in a pattern. So it's a very unique approach. And I've learned from some incredible people that do things very similarly. So I don't take credit. I've really been a fantastic student. And so helping people clear the way from some of those blocks so that they can be the next best version of themselves is something that I find a lot of fulfillment in.
That's so good. I've never heard talking described in that way. Communicating really would be a better word. I've never heard it described in that way on that kind of energetic level. That is so interesting, and yet I know it to be true because words have power. Words have meaning. I mean, you can just going back into just the business side of things. You have copy that you put out there to promote your messaging, your products, whatever. Words matter, and so it's so interesting that you're using words uh to to find those areas where you mention that certain subject or certain word and you just see them go a little bit and you're like, oh, there it
Mhm,
is, and then we get it
mhm,
out. That's
mhm,
I got
mhm,
goosebumps right now. It's amazing.
mhm, mhm. And this person I used to study with many years ago had interviewed, kind of done these genius interviews with these incredible, powerful shamans, these healers. And he, after interviewing a bunch of these incredible healers, came to the conclusion that 90% of healing is intention, that the healer has such a strong intention for the healing to happen. And then the other 10% is the person, quote unquote, being healed, believes that they can be.
That's it.
And just
Mhm.
those two intentions and two beliefs is really where healing happens. And all healing is ultimately self-healing. I can't heal you, but what I can do is hold an intention and a frequency so powerful that you create that healing within yourself.
Right, right. You have to be
Mhm,
receptive to it. You have to
mhm,
be receptive to it. Just like people that say they can't be hypnotized can't be hypnotized because they won't let themselves do it. But if you're
mhm.
open to it, then you'll be walking around on a stage escorting a blue M&M when really there's nobody there at all.
I mean, I can just see in your eyes that you're a healer too. I mean, you know this. I mean, obviously you've done healing work through massage, which is a fantastic form of healing. And I imagine there's been a number of times when you were doing that that you had the intention to really help somebody heal, and by the end of your time with them, they did.
Yep, you're
Yeah,
100% right.
yeah.
The formative word in massage therapy is therapy, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
just physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
I've had multiple people on my table over the years that have, you know, released and just broke down and start crying because they just, whatever it is, wherever it is in their body, I hit it and
Mm-hmm.
it's now
Mm-hmm.
gonna come out. And you just have to hold that space and let them know it's okay and that they're safe and that, we're here for you.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Yeah.
man, I can see
Yeah,
what
I
you feel
know,
you
I
are.
know.
And
I'm
yeah,
getting emotional about it.
and yeah, because it's powerful, and so much of those energies and those beliefs and those traumas are stored cellularly in our body, which is why people often have chronic issues in parts of their body or chronic problems because we do store that energy in certain parts of our body. And that's why I say I think body work is one of the most powerful forms of healing. And when you get a good healer like you that is holding an intention to help heal, really amazing things can happen and transform inside people.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed my time and I found it very rewarding while I was doing that career. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so much fun. I cannot believe we're getting close to an hour already. So before we before we end, I've gotta have you let people know where they can find you, where they can follow you. And I was doing the research. I was looking. Do you have books? Like you're published
Oh,
some
I
books
did. I've
too?
written a bunch of books. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've written 7 books, 2 of which are still in print. The other ones came with a DVD, and nobody has DVDs anymore, and I didn't end up reprinting them. But they were all a lot of my books on Genius. But you can find me on Amazon. Probably the best place to find me is on my LinkedIn page. So Taryn Voget, you can just Google me and find me on LinkedIn and follow me there. I've been posting a lot of interesting content there lately. My website, tarynvoget.com. And on Instagram, again, I think my handle's just Taryn Voget. So I'm easy to find. There's only one Taryn Voget in the world that I know of. So if you Google me, you'll find me.
Excellent. Excellent. And of course, all those links, everybody, they're going to be in the show notes. You don't have to go hunt and peck. You can just go down and click and check out what Taryn has going on. And obviously, you can schedule those consultative calls just to see if, she can help you, help your company, if it's going to be the right fit. And before I let you go, I have to have just a little bit of fun. What, if you can tell us, what are some well-known projects that you've helped bring to light that from either companies or products that if you said them, we would like, I know what that is. I use that. Anything like that in your repertoire that you're allowed to talk about?
There's a few. I probably am not allowed to talk about them, but there is one that I will talk about because it was one of the coolest ones I did. And I think people would really find this beautiful. When I was at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, it's an organization trying to solve really hard problems in the world. How do you solve poverty? And I was tasked with bringing together, or I was with a team and we did this. I shouldn't take full credit for it, bringing together some of the smartest minds in the world that were scientists and trying to solve the hardest problems in the world. And one of them was AIDS. Another one was this very specific medical thing around early childhood births, like premature births.
Mm,
Another one, and there was 3 of these without getting into all the technical medicalness of it all. 3 of the hardest problems that no one has been able yet to really solve. And so we brought together 35 scientists, the most brilliant people from around the world, created the coolest setup. I mean, I got to design this. I had kind of carte blanche, but we took this huge conference room, turned it into a jungle, like a legitimate jungle with bird music and fans blowing the trees, the whole bit. And I got these people for 2 days and I created this really cool card deck called Breakthrough in a Box to help with the creative process, and then broke everybody into teams. And the results that came out of that was some really brilliant thinking that I think is helping to move the needle on some of these really hard problems in the world. And so it's not stuff you'd necessarily see right away, but it's kind of that work that really warms my heart. And what was also cool about it is you get these scientists that have a very specific niche working on something that they didn't know much about, but because they didn't know about it, they were able to come at it a little fresh. And so there was some really fresh thinking that happened as well. that was, I think, insightful for some of the people at the Gates Foundation too. So that was one of my favorites just because it was so cool how we did it.
That is incredible. Now, with you working that process, and I'm guessing it had something to do with medication, and most medications start from something found in nature. Is that why you chose the jungle, just to have like inspiration about where this drug or whatever might come from? It comes from the jungle, and you wanted to put them in there.
It's a fantastic question. That was one of my intentions. Some of them were therapeutic. That was some of the results that came out. But with scientists, they're in labs, and these labs don't have windows, you know. And I thought, how do we create? Again, I'm always about the energy. How do we create the energy, putting them somewhere that they don't normally work in, and create the energy? And nature, especially jungles, have such an incredible genius just in the very design of it. I mean, that is nature at its most genius as a jungle, just the way things are always in balance, and the different flora and fauna and all on the inside, and like how it all works is just brilliant. I mean, you just think, who invented all this? And so it was to, yeah, open up their energy, put them in a different space, get them thinking differently. And my super strong intention was to use the power of nature to help inspire ideas. So that was my intention.
Mm, beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's just the kind of out of the box thinking that you need at a big company when you're stuck on project development where things just aren't working. So hire Taryn. That's the basically what I'm saying.
Thanks for that shout out. Yeah.
Oh, Taryn, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on again. Again, folks, links down below. You can find her the website, LinkedIn, Amazon. Go read up, and of course, hire her if you need her. Taryn, thank you so much again. It was an absolute pleasure.
Truly, the pleasure was mine. Thank you for asking such fantastic questions and for this conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, it's been so fun. You're very welcome. All right, folks. Hope you enjoy it. If you do, give it a like, give it a share it with somebody that needs it. And peace. I'll see you in the next one.